Rain pelted against the tall glass windows of the hotel lobby, blurring the glowing city lights outside. Clara stood behind the reception desk, her fingers tapping nervously against the counter as she glanced at the clock. Almost midnight. The last bus had already gone, and the heavy storm meant she'd be walking home, again, in soaked shoes. That's when he walked in, an older man in a worn coat, rain dripping from his sleeves, his eyes carrying the kind of loneliness you don't just see, you feel. Clara had worked the night shift at the Belmont Grand Hotel for nearly 2 years. She was used to late arrivals, business travelers, tired families, tourists who had lost track of time. But this man was different. His movements were slow, deliberate, as though he was carrying the weight of something invisible. Just one night, he murmured, sliding a few damp bills across the counter. She noticed his hands, calloused, shaking slightly. "You're soaked," Clara said, fetching a towel from behind the desk. "Here, at least dry off." He hesitated, almost startled by the gesture, before accepting it with a small nod. "Thank you, not many people notice." Clara didn't know why, but she felt a pull to be kind to him. Maybe because she recognized that same tiredness in herself. Working long shifts to pay off her mother's medical bills, barely scraping enough to keep the lights on. She understood how life could quietly grind a person down. As she handed him his room key, she noticed he didn't have any luggage. "Traveling light?" she asked gently. "Sometimes, you don't have much left to carry," he replied with a faint, broken smile. That night, Clara sent a cup of hot tea to his room, using her own money. She thought nothing of it, just a small act of kindness for a man who looked like he hadn't been shown any in a long time. The next evening, the man returned, not as a guest, but as someone moving with quiet authority. Staff members she'd never seen so alert before straightened their uniforms. The hotel manager appeared out of nowhere, suddenly, all smiles. Clara blinked in confusion as the man approached her desk again. Only now, he wasn't wearing the worn coat. He was in a tailored suit, his posture upright, his presence commanding. "Mr. Harrington," the manager gushed, "we weren't expecting you until next month." Clara's heart skipped. "Mr. Harrington?" He turned to her, his expression softening. "Clara, we need to talk." Stepping aside, he explained in a quiet voice, "I own this hotel. Last night, I came in without telling anyone. Wanted to see how things really were when no one was watching." He paused, his eyes steady on hers. "Out of all the people here, you were the only one who treated me like a human being, not just a transaction. That means more than you know." Before she could respond, he handed her an envelope. Inside was a scholarship to the hospitality school she had dreamed of attending but could never afford, along with a note. "For the kindness you didn't have to give." Tears filled Clara's eyes. The storm from last night suddenly felt far away. She realized that her small gesture had rippled into something life-changing, not just for her, but for the man who had once seemed so lonely. Months later, Clara stood in the grand ballroom of the Belmont Grand Hotel, not behind the reception desk this time, but at the center of a glittering celebration. The chandeliers sparkled above her, casting golden light over the polished marble floor. Guests mingled in elegant attire, the sound of clinking glasses and soft music filling the air. She was graduating from the prestigious hospitality school, top of her class, and Mr. Harrington had insisted on hosting her celebration here, in the very place their paths had crossed. But the true honor for Clara wasn't the event, it was what she had planned for that evening. During her speech, Clara scanned the crowd and found him, still in his sharp suit, still carrying the quiet dignity of someone who had weathered storms far harsher than rain. She spoke from the heart. "Months ago, I met a man on a rainy night. He came in looking like the world had forgotten him. I didn't know then that he owned this hotel. I just knew he needed kindness. That night changed my life, but it also taught me that kindness isn't just about helping someone who can give something back. It's about giving without expectation." She paused, holding back tears. "Tonight, I want to pay that lesson forward." She gestured to the corner of the room, where a small, thin boy stood awkwardly in an oversized sweater. His name was Elijah, a shy teenager who had been bussing tables part-time to help his grandmother keep their tiny apartment. Clara had met him during her final internship and recognized the same quiet determination she had once carried. "Elijah," she called gently, "will you come up here?" The boy hesitated, but with a little encouragement, he stepped forward. Clara handed him a sealed envelope. Inside is your full scholarship to the same hospitality program I attended. You've worked hard, and you deserve every chance to chase your dreams. The room erupted in applause, but Clara's gaze was fixed on Mr. Harrington. He smiled, really smiled this time, his eyes shining with the unspoken understanding that the kindness he once received had not stopped with her. It had grown, traveled, and found a new life in someone else. Later, as the evening wound down, Mr. Harrington approached her. You've done something I could never buy. Clara, you've made kindness contagious. And in that moment, Clara realized the truth. Storms would always come in life, but so would strangers who would hand you a towel, and sometimes, you'd be the one holding it out. It had been 2 years since that rainy night when Clara first met Mr. Harrington. Life looked nothing like it used to. Her career was flourishing. She was now an assistant manager at the Belmont Grand, and she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had fought their way out of the shadows. But storms have a way of finding us again. One winter evening, a violent blizzard swept through the city. The streets were silent, buried under layers of snow. Clara was working late, overseeing a conference when she saw a figure stumble into the lobby. His coat was tattered, his boots soaked, and his face was pale from the biting wind. He looked no older than 21, but his eyes told a story of someone much older, someone who had already seen too much. The other staff members glanced his way but quickly returned to their tasks, assuming he was just there to get warm before moving on. Clara, however, recognized that look, the mix of exhaustion and hopelessness. It was the same look Mr. Harrington had carried the night she met him. She approached with a warm smile. You look frozen. Come, sit near the fireplace. The young man hesitated, unsure if he belonged there. Clara motioned to one of the waiters. Bring him something hot, on the house. As he sipped his cocoa, Clara sat across from him and gently asked, Rough night? He let out a bitter laugh. Rough year. Came to the city to chase a dream. Lost my job last month. Haven't eaten properly in days. I was just walking to keep warm. Clara's heart ached. She didn't ask for proof, didn't demand explanations. She simply saw a human being in need. After listening to his story, she offered him a night's stay in the hotel, paid for from her own pocket, and gave him a card with a note to meet her in her office the next day. The following morning, Clara introduced him to Mr. Harrington. She explained how years ago, a man had once been shown kindness in this very lobby, and how that moment had changed everything. Mr. Harrington studied the young man quietly, then smiled faintly. Clara, I think it's time we start another scholarship, he said. The young man's eyes widened. Why would you do that for me? Mr. Harrington simply replied, because someone did it for me. And now, we do it for you. Clara stood there, realizing the circle had widened again, another link in the chain of compassion forged by a rainy night long ago. And for the first time, she truly understood, kindness wasn't a single act. It was a legacy. Moral of the story. Even the smallest act of kindness can open doors you never imagined, and sometimes, it changes 2 lives instead of 1.